This is one of the strangest cameras I've ever seen. I was on Amazon one day and came across what looked like another cheap knockoff of the DJI Pocket 3 until I noticed the reviews, and people actually seemed to like it. They said it had a very similar design, same menus, even similar image quality, if not the exact same. In fact, it's so close that some people are convinced it's not a copy at all, but the exact same camera sold under a different name, and maybe even secretly made by DJI to dodge tariffs and regulations. If that is true, I just had to get to the bottom of it and test it out for myself to see if this is truly a DJI Pocket 3, if it's worth buying, or if it's all just a scam. Okay, so we have the Xtra Muse gimbal. This thing looks quite similar to the Pocket 3 just on the box itself. This is the standard combo. Let's give it open and see if it really does live up to the hype. I'm super curious because it makes sense that the DJI Pocket 3 is so popular that people would naturally copy it. But this is the closest I've seen to a straight up copy of the Pocket 3. So let's go ahead and open up this. We got a little bag, quick start guide. We won't be needing that. Okay, so we have a pouch. This feels a little bit lighter compared to the DJI Pocket 3, just a soft carrying pouch, a little bit cheaper. And then here we have some accessories, looks like. Let's get to the camera, which is right there. That's all that is inside the pouch. And what we'll notice here is with these accessories, they also look quite similar as well. So here we have the little tripod adapter, looks identical to the Pocket 3 minus the little color. But we have that. This just looks like a little lanyard thing, USB-C cable. And here is the Xtra Muse camera. Okay. Feels pretty much similar, maybe a little heavier on first notice. So immediate difference is there's like this silver color, which I actually think is quite cool. A little silver and black. Then we have this Xtra logo. I don't know the reason behind the name Xtra. It seems kind of cheap, but maybe that's how potentially DJI is getting around that. If this is made by them, we don't know. Let's go ahead and flip this open. We have our logo and boom. So we can select our language, which just do English. You don't have to register this camera at all. That's something you have to do on DJI products, which is really annoying. This, you turn it on and you're ready to shoot, which is very, very nice. But yeah, you can see immediately from this screen, it feels pretty much the exact same, minus like different fonts. This camera also does take micro SD cards, which just fits right here on the side. It's a little bit harder to get in and out, and it was already difficult on the Pocket 3. So that is something to just be aware of. Come on. There we go. Finally. This takes the same exact accessories too. Here is the battery from the DJI Pocket 3, and we can just attach it and boom, we're actually charging the camera with this DJI accessory. If you have filters or lenses, you can just fit that on the top and it all will work, which is really interesting. Let's go ahead and pull out the DJI Pocket 3 so we can look at them side by side. The gimbal head is slightly larger. I don't know if you can see that. On the sides, you have our SD cards, control stick, record button. Maybe there's like a slightly cheaper plastic on this one, where this feels like a little bit nicer than this. Let's go ahead and turn these on and take a look at the menu differences. Just looking at the cameras on the back of the screen, the image quality looks, again, really similar here. We'll do some official tests in just a second. In terms of resolution, we can swipe up and both cameras are capable of doing 4K up to 60 frames per second, which is pretty impressive. If I go ahead and swipe over to the right to access some of our pro settings, again, things are looking quite similar. Slightly different placement of exposure, white balance, but everything is right there if you want to adjust it. Now I'm curious to see the differences in the color profiles. On the Pocket 3, we have normal, HLG, D-Log M, and on the Xtra Muse, we have normal, HLG, and X-Log. So if I actually go back to logs, do they look similar? Yep, so at first glance, it looks like this log profiles look pretty similar as well, but we'll get to some test footage later on in the video. So after taking a look at the design and the menus, obviously these cameras are looking quite similar, if not identical, but I'm actually curious, how well does it perform? So let's go take this out, get some shots, and see how these two cameras stack up.
One thing's for sure is that the weather is beginning to cool down, and it is so nice to be able to be outside, and perfect for today's test to see just how close they are. I'm also shooting on the default settings on both of these cameras, so no adjustments. Everything is automatic white balance exposure, so really it is just up to the camera to determine what is the best image, and this is what you get. All right, I'm gonna put this down because I don't want to get arrested. Okay, so we have both cameras here side by side. Can you notice a difference in the image quality? Take a look at the exposure, color, maybe sharpness difference. When I'm looking on the back of the screens, the image looks pretty similar, so I'll have to look at this footage later. But let me know in the comments down below if you notice any sort of difference. You know, for being such a nice day out today, there's not a lot of people out, but I actually kind of prefer that because I can just focus on this video. But looking at the image quality side by side, it's really hard to judge the difference between them. If you guys can spot any difference, let me know in the comments down below. But when I adjust the exposure, everything looks pretty much the same. So I'm beginning to believe that the Xtra Muse may in fact be the Osmo Pocket 3, but let's keep testing. Okay, so it wouldn't be a fair comparison unless we did a stabilization test. So right now I'm handheld video. Looks pretty smooth, but we've got to do a run test to really stress this out. So, how did that perform? That's with active tracking, so trying to keep my face framed up, which made it really easy. Now, a feature that made the Osmo Pocket 3 so popular is the active track mode, and the Xtra Muse has the exact same tracking feature. We're testing out side by side to see which one is smoother, and when I'm looking at displays, it's following me pretty much identically. I see the same box. It's doing a pretty good job at both. I'm not a big fan of this active track feature. Call me old school, but I prefer to lock off my shot, but it is super nice to be able to, again, find your composition, move around if you want to. It's pretty neat. Now, you also might be wondering about the crop mode that was introduced to the Pocket 3 that allows you to get a 2x zoom. Well, there actually is a little button on the Xtra. I have no idea what the image quality is like, so let's test it out. Okay, so we have both modes enabled. It looks like the Pocket 3 is slightly tighter compared to the Xtra, which is kind of interesting, but here's the crop modes. Is there a noticeable difference in the sharpness or the image quality? Let me know what you guys think. Now, the feature I just had to compare is the log color profiles. So on the Osmo Pocket 3, we have D-Log M, and on the X Muse, you guessed it, we have X-Log. They actually look pretty similar, as you can tell. I'm really curious to see how this grades and if there's any differences. I'll let you know my thoughts later on in the video, but this is how both of these look. So far in this video, you've been listening to the DJI Mic Mini connected to the Osmo Pocket 3. Now, the Xtra camera does not have the same connectivity, so I want to do an audio test to hear the built-in microphones. So let's go ahead and switch over to the built-in microphones. So I switched over to the built-in microphone on the Osmo Pocket 3. It's about 1.5 feet away from me, and this is how it sounds. Now we're going to switch over to the Xtra Muse microphone. There's a lot of wind noise, a lot of tree noises, so this is how it's going to sound in this sort of environment. We'll switch back to the Pocket 3. Can you guys hear a difference between these microphones? Let me know in the comments down below. Honestly, these have better built-in sounding microphones compared to other cameras on the market, and that's a good thing because you're going to have to most likely rely on the built-in microphone on the Xtra Muse, unless you want to plug in a USB-C microphone. Now, if you find yourself doing a lot of social media or vertical video, well, both of these have a vertical filming mode. It is limited to 3K, which is, you know, it's going to be fine for social media. You don't get the full 4K resolution, but this is a great feature to have. Plus, I'm using the tracking mode. So if you are a solo vlogger, social media person, these cameras got you covered if you want to film some vertical video. And for those who are curious about battery life, they look just about the same on both. So quite similar there as well. All right, so we have a ton of test footage. Let's head back to the studio and share my final thoughts on these two cameras.
So after shooting and comparing footage from both cameras, I've come to realize why this camera is so strange. It's because it's not trying to beat the Pocket 3, it's trying to be it. When looking at the image quality, it is shockingly similar. Both are sharp and have very similar looking colors, if not the same. And when color grading the log footage, I actually just copied and pasted the same exact adjustments between clips, and they looked identical. The color science, the dynamic range matched so closely that I really had a hard time telling these two cameras apart. In terms of the functionality and performance, both handled great. It had very smooth tracking, solid stabilization, and they also shared those higher frame rates like 4K 60 if you want to slow down your footage. On paper, both of these cameras are nearly identical in terms of capability. There is one large difference that affects this practically if you plan to use this as your main vlogging camera, and that is the Xtra Muse does not support wireless microphones, so you are limited to the onboard mic or plugging in an external USB-C microphone. The way I got around this is by using the DJI Mic's mini receiver and plugging that onto the back of the Xtra Muse camera, and while it works, it's definitely not the most convenient setup. It adds a lot of bulk. You also have to think about bringing that extra receiver, which you don't have to worry about with the Pocket 3. There's one more difference, and that is the price, which might be a factor depending on who you are and where you're from. Right now, you can get the DJI Pocket 3. The list price is $799, which is definitely an increase since tariffs and regulations and all that other jazz. But at the time of recording this video, you can find the Pocket 3 on Amazon for $630 for the standard combo. The price for the Xtra Muse gimbal list price is $700, but you can typically find it on sale for around $500, which is what we picked it up for. So at most, the difference between these two cameras is $130, which is not a massive amount of savings and kind of begs the question if it's even worth it. And the answer to that question is going to really depend on where you are. Do you live in the US or outside? Because if you're outside the US, chances are you probably have a better chance of picking up the Pocket 3 at a more reasonable price. In that case, I would highly recommend just sticking with the Pocket 3. Having that mic compatibility, I think, definitely tips you over that edge. Now, if you live inside the US, this is where it gets a little bit more complicated because in many cases, you can't actually get a Pocket 3. It's just not available, or if you can, it's at a really high price, like $800 for just the camera. Whereas right now you can buy the Xtra Muse from Amazon for around $500 and get it shipped directly to you in a matter of a couple days. And so if you are needing this type of camera, I could see the Xtra Muse being nice if you want to get the Pocket 3 and almost have all of its functionality and image quality. This could be a good option. Now, there's actually merit to the speculation that the Xtra Muse is actually DJI and this is a shell company, because we've seen DJI do that before. And if this is a way they can get us these cameras at a more reasonable price and get them shipped out and avoid, different legal issues, it is a very interesting and weird camera to exist right now. I do think it would be a better sell if it was even cheaper, maybe around $400, $450. If there's a larger gap, as well as having its own microphone and capabilities, then I would recommend it a lot more. But for right now, if you can get a Pocket 3, just get that, even if it's a little bit more expensive. But also for these price points, you might consider just shooting with your iPhone. And if you are curious to see how the Pocket 3 compares to the iPhone 17 Pro when it comes to shooting video, subscribe for when that video comes out, and I'll catch you in the next one.